what they believe will be making their manifestation faster is the very thing that makes it slower, that makes it stop, that makes it halt, that makes it die, that makes it never happen. Now, if you need your manifestation fast, you can get your manifestation fast. There are very practical common denominators that I've witnessed through studying these manifestations before. Hi, my name is Joseph Alai. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to talk about time, deadlines, the science behind how time works in reality with manifesting. Contentious topic. People say this, other people say that. And if you're like me, it can get very confusing to know what is real. That's why I started testing manifesting 13 years ago. These journals over here, as I pointed out in my last video, I've been keeping track of all of my manifestations for 13 years. And that's not just listing down the successful manifestations. That's segmented tests. That is trial and error. Variety of different ways, using the list method and breaking things down, finding common denominators within them. The reason I bring that up is because that's what I teach on my channel. I used to read books, lots and lots of books, hundreds of books. I've read hundreds and hundreds of books on manifesting, on reality, on the universe. I am a avid reader, right? Avid reader. In university, I studied computer science, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a programmer, right? But also studied math and physics. So my mind is very much practical and pragmatic. I need a system. I cannot go for maybes. I cannot even rest. My mind will race until I find the solution to a problem. Testing is for me. The reason testing is amazing is because until I know something for a fact, I cannot merely rest. I cannot just believe something that is said to me. But I'm going to tell you with time, this is very relevant because there are ways in which you can test, that you can perform very basic, simple experiments. Ones that by the end of them, and it would just take a very brief amount of time, you will know precisely how time works. If you've never seen my video on the list method, I'll be making an updated version of it soon, but I highly suggest, I would very much like the entire audience now, get on that video and watch it. If you're already performing the list method and you're seeing the results, comment in the comments below, just to let the other people know that it works. And not only does it work, but it's shocking. It blows your mind. It completely shatters the concepts of manifesting as you would know it. Nothing in mainstream manifesting validates what you can witness firsthand in manifesting. And that is the angle through which we are taking this approach today. Now, as I said, if you followed in the previous video, you would have witnessed the data-driven approach that I've taken, right? I've recently, over the past 2 years, I have extracted this data out of here. I've put it onto the computer. As I said, I'm an entrepreneur, software engineer. I've constructed a deep learning program that can extract and find the common denominators through not only my thousands, tens of thousands of experiments, but also from the hundreds of thousands of those who have submitted to me and the rest that I've scraped off of the internet. That is what I bring to you today. That is what I am coming to you with. That's my side of things. And I'm going to extract I'm going to summarize all that I know on the topic and get you manifesting in the fastest, most effective way possible. There are ways to know how to manifest the quickest. There are ways to prove whether or not you can control time, whether you can manipulate time, whether you can supersede or surpass time. And by performing simple experiments, there will be nothing that can ever deter you from knowing the truth, no matter what anyone says. If you haven't figured this out already, this is not the channel that merely gives you a 3-step trick to making $1 million by Friday. If you're looking for a simple hack or trick, I'm going to save you the time. Just bounce right now. Just leave the channel. I'm not kidding. All of my videos are very in-depth, intricate. None of them are anything you would have heard before. It's not recycled narrative content from other YouTube channels. It's not through the books that I've read, although I've read hundreds of them. This is through experimental practices And much of what I will say, you will not have read anywhere. You might have, obviously what I'm telling you, you will relate to your experiences because this is precisely what I'm saying. This is experiential manifesting, verifiable manifesting. I'm not going to just pass down something to you from a tradition. I'm not going to reread Neville Goddard and say, yes, that is the truth, without having tested it firsthand. So that's a little... I need to give that to you as a disclaimer because in the last video I had people saying, oh, summarize this in 3 minutes. If you're one of those, just leave now. This is not a 2-minute clip video. This is a full brainwashing of how you believe manifesting works, but in a very predictable, applicable way. So jumping into this now, the topic of time, right? The problem that I see, the one thing that makes people's manifestation the slowest is a thing that is that they are attempting to do in the first place, or in otherwise, what they believe will be making their manifestation faster is the very thing that makes it slower, that makes it stop, that makes it halt, that makes it die, that makes it never happen. Now, if you need your manifestation fast, you can get your manifestation fast. There are very practical common denominators that I've witnessed through studying these manifestations before. You likely already have the experiences to look at to prove this to yourself, depending on how long you've been doing this for, right? Now, again, just to be clear, this isn't through reading this in a book. You're not going to find it in a book. There's a gazillion contradictory, conflicting ideas. You need practicality, right? You need something that's going to work. So what are the problems here, and what is that one thing that people do that screws their manifestations up? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, and that thing is setting a deadline. That thing is making their manifestation, they're forcing it into a faster, trying to manipulate reality to control time in the first place. Now, that might seem like a contradiction because there are ways to make your manifestation faster, like 100%. When you look at the grand scheme of all of the manifestations, right? Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, even if you compare 20 of them, you can find the common denominators and what makes someone's manifestation stop short, what makes them never happen, what makes them go slow, what makes them take cycles. I mean, all of these things are very visible and easy to see if you're taking the proper precautions in setting up your experiments and asking the right questions. But with the concept of time, the first thing that I want to say is if you are setting a deadline, it must be done in a very different way than you think in order for anything to take effect. Let me break down the core aspect for you, the core concept. Manifestation takes place, or it originates in a place where time is not a function. In other words, that's the problem that most people do not understand. That's the problem that most people are not taught. Time is not a function of manifesting. Even the mention of time has no understanding or place in an imaginal scene whatsoever, right? Time in and of itself is only on this experiential plane. And the interesting thing about it is time itself is only a concept that a human mind or another being's mind generates on its own to compare one experience to the other. In other words, there is no time in the first place. Many people hear that statement and they think to themselves, oh, there's no time, so I can manipulate time. No, there's no time to manipulate in the first place. There is no such thing as time. So if there's no such thing as time, let me break that down again one more time to describe to you what I just said, because the words that I'm choosing are very specific and very accurate. So you're probably going to want to pause it and replay this when I say this. Time is not, first of all, time is not a belief. It is not a belief. It has nothing to do with belief. Time is a made-up a concept, an observation. And observations are not the same things as beliefs. If I observe a rock, that doesn't mean I believe there's a rock there. If I observe the sun rising, that doesn't mean I believe the sun is rising. And second to that, time itself is not even a tangible thing, right? There is no time. What do I mean by that? Time is something that the mind experiences when it compares one experience to the next. So there is no time. The human mind comes up with a feeling that it calls time. And that feeling that it calls time is merely comparing one moment to the next. The reason, again, time is not a belief, and time, by expelling time as a belief, you will manifest instantly. First of all, let me poke more holes in this. This is absolutely critical, and I promise you I'm going to give you a solution in the end, right? Expelling the belief of time does not make you able to manifest instantly. Do you see, by the way, where this paradox is? First of all, the word instant implies time. So by saying instant, you are forcing time yet again to play a part. The only way, to expel the concept of time is to not even mention it whatsoever. So, however, let's go to the idea that if only your beliefs make bridge of incidents, only your beliefs make time. Think now, I'm going to prove to you just this brief logical argument, right? First of all, I'm making the argument that most of the flaws in manifesting, you don't actually need to study manifesting. You just need to logically think. Now, I say that, and it might sound kind of passive aggressive, but I myself had overlooked this for years, many years, right? Think now of something that does not have a belief about time. And that thing also then would have the ability to manifest. What would something like that be? Perhaps an infant, a baby, free entirely of beliefs. Beliefs don't even set until years in. By that theory alone, with the individualized creating their reality, not having a belief about time would mean instantaneously they would be able to manifest, right? So again, I already said, you can't say the word instant without implying time. But nevertheless, if that theory were true, then the moment an infant thought about its mother, she would appear, right? So again, flaws, but this is only one amongst thousands of them. And then I mentioned it already, but the mentioning of instantaneous implies time. So again, you cannot even mention the word instantaneous without implying time. Do you catch my point here? But I'm going to give you the solution. If time is not a factor of reality, if time is not a function of reality, then what is? Well, I kind of said it before. In fact, I did say it before. Experience, right? You compare one experience to the next. So let me bring this all together. What causes time to be experienced when you're manifesting something? It's the bridge of incidents, right? So I've heard this really silly argument that the bridge is only beliefs, right? Again, an observation is not a belief. It's just occurring independent of beliefs. Your beliefs are not formed until long after you observe something, right? So, but just to come back to the concept of the bridge of incidents, right? We say the bridge of incidents, how do I make it shorter? How do I make it faster? So, specifying time does not work because time is not a function of manifesting. Then what is? The answer is the individual experiences. So in other words, if I need to manifest winning the lottery, I can think of off the top of my head, there are a few different experiences that must occur, right? I must go to the store, I must purchase a ticket, and I must read the numbers when it plays. But really, there's much more behind the scenes, right? The manifestations aren't just occurring from experiences that are events, right? Manifestations, the building blocks of a manifestation are not just events, right? They are thoughts, right? You have to have the impulse to go to the correct store. You have to have the impulse to play the correct numbers. You have to feel whatever, all of these different building blocks, anything that can ever exist within the mind or in this experience are the building blocks. I mean, literally, that is the law of reality, right? All things exist within you, meaning God. And so therefore, all things are used as aspects for a bridge of incidents. Now consider when you are manifesting a specific person, which is generally, there's a few instances that are extremely common, right? And I was reading this, I was reading this application that I received for coaching a while back, right? So when you apply for, you have to apply for coaching with me, right? I only approve 10% or so usually. I mean, I did the math, about 10% or so of the people. So when they submit their applications and I'm reading them through and I'm trying to figure out, is this person serious about manifesting? Is this person ready to commit to manifesting? Is this person dilly-dallying? Is this person, has he gone to a million coaches before? You know, all these different factors that I'm trying to put into this, right? Because I'm trying to find someone who's really dedicated. The people who are dedicated take on the advice. The people who take on the advice are the people who actually get the results, right? Not just picking and choosing and all of this type of stuff. But in this individual's application, they were talking about the concept of time, and they were saying how they were attempting to manifest their specific person, and they were, whatever. They listed their entire scenario, but then they started to say, like, I need it done by this time, and I keep imagining that it's done by this time, and it never is manifesting, and I need this to happen. And they kept talking about deadlines and kept talking about their biological clock, and they kept talking about all these things that are absolutely legitimate. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? They were subject to an arranged marriage. This person's biological clock was ticking. I forget what else. There was a few different things in there. And as I'm reading this individual's application, and I'm trying to find these variables, I decide that, okay, let's go ahead and give this person a shot. So we ended up having a few sessions. And in these sessions, first of all, the transformation was amazing, but within the experiences that this individual was telling me, that displays all of the nuances of how time works. So I'm going to lay out to you, and I'm also going to show you some stuff on the screen if you can see it at some point or another. It's going to be charts from the data, right? Charts from the data. And what I want to explain to you now, first and foremost, is the different angles or aspects of time. So this person went through all of them, right? This person, and you'll find this out, right? When you start doing the list method, please start doing the list method exercise. By the way, this is not a general method. This is an exercise that is created by me. If you can go into my description or go into the comments, I'll post it there, or watch my video or watch the one that Athena Raven did as well. This is not just a broad general method that you might have heard of somewhere. This is a very specific thing. But what you'll find is you can very quickly discern how time works by using variations of words in this exercise. So this person was using a lot of scripting. One thing that she was doing was writing down, in her scripting, she kept writing down a date, right? Now, she had gone through a number of missed deadlines, right? Now, you can relate this to anything, right? I've done this myself back in the day when I was trying to manifest money for bills. I know people who have done this for, debts. I know they've done this for school. I know they've done this for degrees. I know they've done this to get into colleges. I know they've done this for weddings and trying to get into shape. There's been so many winning contests, competitions. There's so many variations of this. So apply this to yours, but I'm going to explain to you what this person did. So there's four, if on the top of my head, there are four different things that this individual did. And I'm going to give you the first thing I want to do is give you the answer. I want to give you the explanation as to what happened. And what you will find in the chart that I will show you, and again, where's this chart coming? Watch the video that I did last time and you'll see where the chart is coming from. It's just from the data, from the subscribers, from transcripts, from my own experiences, from scraped off the internet and put through AI and deep learning of this application that I built. But what the data suggests is that people who mention the words today in their manifestation, like I did this today, and people who don't mention time at all end up manifesting their manifestations within around the same framework of time. So in other words, that specification today does absolutely nothing. And isn't that interesting though? How is that even possible? Why does that happen, right? And there are many other nuances, right? There are other aspects. One of the aspects involves leaving hard deadlines in the future. There are other aspects of leaving very long deadlines in the future, super far ahead, right? Some of you may have experienced this. And then, not doing anything at all. And I think those are the ones. But it's interesting so she essentially used all of these things. And the first thing she did was she would, do something like, he texted me today, which again, I do not suggest manifesting the middle. It's really messy. It messes up your mind. It can mess up the manifestation. Always go to the end. But in this case, this individual, this woman kept doing things like, he messages me today. He such and such today. And what would happen would be nothing. Nothing would happen, at least for a while. And it was only when she stopped or when she took a break or when she thought that she failed in that regard, a few days later, the thing that she wrote down 5 days before, even though she wrote down today, happened. So today was discarded. Why was today discarded? Through the research, and you can find this in common denominators, right? This is research of already completed manifestations. This is not in just theoretical thinking of how things work, right? Is the consciousness itself, right? Meaning the awareness, which is aware of your experience, meaning the fact that you can observe your thoughts means there is an observer and then there are your thoughts. That observer itself replicates what it's aware of. So in other words, when you imagine a thing, when you write a thing, when you affirm a thing, that thing will become replicated. Now, here's the thing. It's not replicating it from the moment now. It's carbon copying this experience, so there will become a time when that experience must occur. So what would happen would be, she would write down this thing, like, he texted me today. He said this to me today. And then she would wait and nothing would happen. But then 5 days later, what would happen? He messaged me today. So that today is not, again, time itself is not, it's not even understood in the grand scheme of eternity, right? Manifestation exists prior to time and space, right? So when you use the word today, it's the word that gets replicated, not the meaning behind it. Because there is no meaning of today associated in that eternity. You can take that to the bank. That is not only one experience, right? Obviously, you could take it out of context and say, well, that's just one experience. This is something that I have seen personally hundreds and hundreds of times with my own eyes. And then those individuals who have, that I've scraped this data from, people who have submitted it, etc. So that is a very interesting thing. Now, I want to take this to another aspect, another thing that this woman did. So her thing was, now she had started manifesting him 2 years prior. Now, if you're freaking out by that, you have to realize that this person, listen, just because you've been manifesting for 2 years doesn't mean you've been doing it right. And there's probably 99% of people who are teaching it who don't know how to do it right. They're brand new themselves, so they don't know the nuances. So if you're in this journey and you're struggling, just take the testing, start testing it. Screw what I'm saying, screw what anyone's saying. You have to start to test it if you want to know what's 100% true, okay? Right? So you don't need me, you don't need anybody, right? Just start testing it. So what happened though is this person set a deadline. A couple of years back, she had set a deadline. I want to be married to so-and-so within 1 year. I want to be married to so-and-so within 1 year. She wrote it down from the perspective of it being true. Like there was nothing wrong with the imaginal act. There was nothing wrong with the statement. And what happened was nothing happened. Nothing happened. Nothing happened, period. Now, what does that mean? Now, interestingly enough, this is another nuance of setting deadlines, right? And I've seen this go the other way, where people have gone extremely long, right? I've gone extremely long, right? What would happen is if you set that time, that date, right? It's the word itself, that exact meaning behind it, that replication must be experienced. That replication must be experienced. Now, manifestation occurs because of a bridge of incidents that is put together ingeniously by the infinite creative power of the universe, literally, right? This is not some impersonal force. This isn't some vending machine that is impersonal. This is something that has the grandest amount of intelligence, all intelligence, literally, right? The fact that intelligence exists, anything that we can ever know, anything we will know, any thoughts, any meanings, any conclusions, all comes from that material substance called infinite intelligence, literally. So that is what we're tapping into when we're creating. Likewise with infinite power, infinite intelligence, infinite wisdom, infinite will, meaning controlling everything, infinite light, infinite love. And there are other facets which every single thing that we experience here is actually made out of. We may call them other things, but they are just facets of those same attributes of consciousness, of God. Now you can test this, and we will talk about this later in other videos, how I'm going to take you through a process where you can actually extract those facets and prove to yourself all of the aspects and power that God has by manifesting your own manifestations. That means you have that power. So, okay, anyway, back to the concept of replication, right? Replication deep into the future, not even deep, a year into the future, which seemed reasonable, but the problem is she wasn't even on a ground where this would be happening. Like they weren't even together. They weren't even together. So what happened as a result of that is the replication could not occur. The bridge of incidents, those experiences that must stack together, they would not have amounted the complete transformation of all the parties involved. Now consider this, right? Consider this from the perspective of an Indian family, of a traditional Indian family, right? The families have to agree, they have to meet, they have to, there's so much stuff that's involved, right? It's arranged. This is a way different, way more sacred of an experience than a lot of the Western cultures that I'm aware of. So given that there was nothing that was approved, nothing that was known, nothing at all, and the family wasn't even near that position internally, it could not be fulfilled by that deadline. And so what happens if a manifestation cannot happen to the exact T that it was spoken as? Nothing happens. It just doesn't happen. Now, again, this is one example, but I've seen this countless times, right? This is an example that is proven throughout all of the thousands of manifestations that have been entered into the system that I've observed. You've probably seen this as well. And you might even be saying to yourself, this makes sense, right? This makes perfect sense. When I found this out, I was like, yeah, that makes perfect freaking sense, man. It's literally the lack of understanding of how consciousness works in the beginning, like altogether, that caused me to not understand how this facet of the whole thing works. Now, I want to talk to you about another angle, one that does not apply to this person, but I'm going to continue on this story here. And that is going beyond, going further. What it comes to be, and this is what I have seen in many different instances, and this is what I assume to be true. You, like myself, may be a person who has been able to manifest on any given dates. I'll tell you, my mother, I've witnessed it firsthand, my mother do it incidentally, but nevertheless, she created the exact day and time that my younger sister would be born and where, which hospital. To the minute, and what she did was in advance, she called and left a message on my grandmother's phone. Actually, no, let me rephrase that. She called the messaging service. Who knows why she did this? She was led, right? You'll have your own theories. I want to know what you think about this, because this is totally crazy. She will verify this for you if you ever need her to. This is freaking sane. She, for whatever reason, once she was pregnant, like newly pregnant, right? We're talking, my sister's 23 now or something. My mother calls my grandmother. No, she calls the messaging service to leave a message in advance to my grandmother, right? 8 months before or whatever she was born, and says, "Hi, Mom, it's Anne. I just gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Haley Alai, at such and such time. I'm at such and such hospital," and whatever, and hung up. Why did she do this? Who knows? But literally, when my mother gave birth to my sister, she had not called anybody. My grandma showed up at the hospital at the exact time that she was there. And my mother was like, "What? How are you here?" She's like, "You called me, you left a message." And my mother remembered the message that she left on the automated system 8 months before, and it just so happened to be at the exact hospital, exact time, exact place. This is verifiably true. So what happens in an instance like this? You can obviously manifest within a time frame. Now, might not be the greatest example. You could say this is a premonition, right? I have my suspicions as well. But in many instances, what it looks like is when you manifest in advance, when you set a deadline far into the future, if the bridge of incidents can come together in that time frame, it will do so and then delay until that time, right? So long as it can complete the task, it will complete the task or get ready to complete the task, only to deliver it at the exact time that you've set. So in other words, the key is in the future, right? And I have data to show this, which I'll put on the screen, but in the future, if you go deep into the future, enough ample time so that this manifestation can happen, then it can very well fulfill and get replicated. So that is how it works. Now, I'm going to give you the conclusion to this woman's story. So what happened, right? She was stressed out. She was burnt out. She tried all these different techniques. She was trying to manifest within time. And the problem was that she was so fixated on time. She was so fixated on the fact that like I said, her biological clock was ticking, man. And whatever situation you're in, right? There's nothing I can tell you to chill you out. Nothing you can tell me to chill me out. If I am freaked out, if I'm worried, if I'm anxious, okay, there are things you can say to chill me out. But point being is, it's natural. That is very, very normal. There is plenty of times, even in my own life, where I get bent out of shape because I think to myself, how the hell is this going to transpire within the time frame that I've needed it, right? Now, there's other nuances, right? There is, if you set a deadline, but then you also imagine without a deadline, you can still manifest that desire. Right? That will work, right? One of them is just ignored. The rest of them just go as if you've never set a deadline in the first place. So talking though about, and I mentioned this in the Discord. So I have a Discord community, right? I have a mastermind group every Thursday, and we talk a lot about various advanced level topics of manifestation, right? The mystical stuff, the non-duality behind it, right? The experiential, how to test, all the nuances, all the mystical experiences, the Neville stuff, advanced in depth. And one of the conversations that came up a while back was on this very specific topic, and it was just about leaving out the concept of time in and of itself. So talking about, as I said initially, right, the degree of people who have manifest, like there's no difference in manifesting saying today, there's no difference in time saying if you manifest today versus if you just leave today out. Or another one that's interesting is tomorrow. If you say something like, I will receive this tomorrow, well, there will never be a time frame where you will say, I manifested this tomorrow, meaning the replication of your consciousness never comes in that regard. So there's an indefinite pushing forward and it'll never happen. So that's not the answer. The answer becomes, and this is what I told to this woman, and this is what we were talking about in a group, in this mastermind group a while back when we were talking about time, is the fastest way to manifest is to construct a very simple scene that does not include time in and of itself. Right? There's so much involved with time, right? You can speed things up by making the scene less complex, making it short, making it concise. If you want to know more on that, absolutely, please comment below. I love it when you guys comment. I love talking with you guys. I love knowing what you guys are thinking because it helps me make the content for the future, and it makes me feel connected to you guys. So let me know what you think. If you want more information about complexity, if you want to know what that deep learning system that I constructed says about it, right? If you want to know what the AI has to say after we feed it in a million different data points, what is it going to say about this? Just let me know and I'll definitely put that into a video. But the topic in and of itself, the simplicity of constructing a simple scene that implies you have what you want without mentioning time in and of itself, without feeling like it's a deadline, without mentioning any concept related to time, right? That is the simple way to construct the fastest manifesting scene that you can possibly do. That is the key. So in our session, one of our sessions, we were talking, and I had to get to the bottom of what the issue was. Now, yes, she wants to get married to this person more than anything else, but the pressure from the parents, right? They're trying to marry her off to somebody else. The pressure of her biological clock. The pressure of him maybe finding someone else, right? These are all extreme pressures. No one wants to deal with this, and this is horrifying. This is terrible, right? There's nothing nice about this. But what I'll say to you is the answer that I gave her is I had her do a couple beliefs, right? So I constructed an imaginal scene for her, right? So she had gotten an imaginal scene as well. I ended up picking apart some of her beliefs and assumptions on my own time, creating this imaginal scene with regards to beliefs, so to construct and modify the beliefs. But in the session, after she had done that, I helped her define this scene. It literally was, right? And this was what the defining thing, the simple thing was, is what do you want, right? What would imply that you have it? So she started rattling off like, well, first of all, she gave way too much detail initially, right? So I told her, give me your process of constructing a scene. She's naming all of this stuff. First of all, her scene was like 10 minutes long. There was tons of different detail involved in it. I mean, physical detail. The emotion that she included in it was overriding, super powerful. There was a lot of things that were slightly off, but the one thing that I knew was the problem was, as she told me before, this timeline thing. So I said, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Just imagine the end without specifying time. You're going to deliberately, this is the key, this was her key. You're going to deliberately imagine a scene without specifying time whatsoever. You're going to leave out indications of time. You're not going to reference or look at anything that involves time past or time exists whatsoever. You're going to be in a neutral space. You're going to make your scene short and concise. Right? 10 minutes is far too long. The imagination will not be able to construct a short, concise, the subconscious will not be able to create a short and concise, a long scene. It must be short and concise. It has to be short and concise. Too long, the subconscious will take different bits and pieces of it. Too complex, too many things have to happen, meaning more experiences have to stack up in order for that manifestation to happen. So yes, she had multiple desires. She wanted to get married. She wanted to have kids. Actually, that's really the key. That was the key of it. She wanted to get married to him. And so what she did was she imagined 3 individualized scenes and then 1 combination scene. That was the key. And so in those was simple. 1, she was married to her person and she was celebrating an anniversary, right? There was just an anniversary, right? There was no years or time or anything specified, but it was, I'm glad we're married. Happy anniversary. Simple, 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 simple. That was it. In a neutral location, not in a brand new house that she wanted to create. None of that, right? This is some of the major pitfalls that I've seen that make things add up to time, etc. And it's hard when you talk to someone, right? When I'm talking to a coaching client and they're asking me for their opinion, they're like, yes, I've been imagining for 17 years. I know this scene is good. Check out this scene. And then they give me some crazy ass long scene that you're like, oh, how do I break this to this person? This is not this is not the scene. Short. Married, anniversary, that's 1. After the end, right? Not getting married, has been married. With this person, with him, right? The next one was the 3 of them together, right? That was the key. So what happened after she dropped the deadline? So we had this conversation, her and I, and during the session when I told her that she had to drop the deadline and I told her why, that it's not going to help you. It's likely the thing that has caused the problem in the first place. And at first she was reluctant. You could see the stress because she was so afraid that if she dropped the deadline, even though she'd never tried it without it, she was afraid that she would not manifest this desire. But nevertheless, her scene then became one that was quite similar to what it was prior. But she had dropped all notions of deadlines. An anniversary scene, as I said before. What happened was amazing. Nothing short of miraculous, but this is one of the more amazing stories that unfolded as a result of a bridge of incidents. So I hadn't gone too much into detail as to why there were problems in the first place, but his family wasn't as interested, her family wasn't as interested. But after a couple of weeks, the last time I spoke to her, a couple weeks passed, and when she got in touch with me, I was shocked. And what happened was, it was the moment, or the day that we had talked, that night she had, resolved, she had made the decision that she would be fine without a deadline. Now, this was a struggle, and she told me initially she struggled internally for a little while, and she realized that setting of the timeline in and of itself caused a lot of psychological problems. There was never a time where she wasn't looking, searching, waiting for that manifestation. And that's only one reason behind why time doesn't work, as we've gone over all the other reasons prior. But she internally made a decision that would ultimately change everything. I think it was the moment that she made the decision that it would be okay if it wasn't within a time frame, but she imagined the scenes without time. And what happened was, as per her emailing me, this is what she told me. She said that a couple weeks had passed and she got a message from her specific person, and what he told her was one of the elders in the family had a dream. Now, these two families, they knew each other. They're in the same social circles. They live within the same region, and so they're not strangers to each other, and they are friendly with each other. But what happened was they didn't see them to be perfect fits together. Whether it was, I think there was something to do with the advice from one of their religious leaders in the area. And the point is, one of the elders in his family had a dream, and the dream was, it brought him a good feeling about the girl, right? So he didn't go into too much detail about it, but he ended up talking to his family, right? He's an elder in the family, but he ended up talking to the specific person's immediate family and saying that he had a good feeling about her because he had this dream. Now, this is totally crazy. Now, this is not unheard of, though. I've heard of stuff like this happen before. This is how you know it's because of a manifestation. But what happened on her end was, like I said, they know each other. The families know each other. But what happened is after she had dropped that timeline, someone in her family, not in the immediate family, but someone a little bit more removed, they were at a social gathering, and she ran into him, talked to him, the specific person, and she was very impressed, very impressed. So she met some of the family, and then she met and was talking to him more thoroughly. And again, comes home and tells her family. And it wasn't until her family told her, so the extended family member had told her parents that she liked him and filled the parents in entirely on why, all the different aspects, all the different details she liked. He was career driven, all these different things. And her family started thinking about it and let her know, my client, that they would actually approve of this. Now, that's where we're at now. Both of the families are in talks together, but that is literally the key that unlocks this whole thing. And if you know anything about these cultures, the Indian culture, at least what I'm referring to, it's essentially a done deal. They're extremely happy. They know what's going to come. There's going to be an official proposal coming soon. And that's all because she dropped the timeline. Now, like I said, there are various reasons, right? One of which is specifying time can delay it. It can throw it in the garbage. Specifying time could nullify it. Specifying today means nothing. Specifying tomorrow means never. But the core is, the fastest you want the manifestation, you have to plant that seed independent of time. Time itself, as I said, does not play any role in manifestation with regards to where it is derived from, right? Outside of time, space, in eternity is where the imagination goes when we imagine. It's not a flicker of electrical impulse around the brain. That's not what our imaginal acts are. We are selecting into the infinite library of God, of our true self, and we are selecting an option that we wish to unfold. And where we are selecting from is in eternity. And in eternity, all things exist now, which means there is no time. So specifying time, that's just another reason why it's just ineffective in its entirety. But the proof is in the pudding, right? This is not something that I say, I predict this is how it is. No, this is what you can observe when you reflect back on your manifestations, right? Remember, testing is critical. If you've been doing the list method, you'll see it's very obvious. You'll notice exactly how time plays a part. But if you want your manifestations and you're delaying it and you're wondering, how can I get over on this time thing? The real key is just to let it go. Let go of time. Imagine something as if it's happening right now. Don't even specify time. And as long as you bring then, here, and now, you'll manifest it in the fastest way possible. So that's what happened with my client. The key is, make it too long, it'll take long, right? Add too many details, it'll manifest too many details, right? Another aspect, and we'll talk about this at a different time, but it's regards, so you can watch my video on micro assumptions, but micro assumptions, or your assumptions, also will dictate the type of experiences that manifest. So that is another component, but I'm not referring to that here. We're referring only to the specifics of numerical time, right? So that is the key here. Those are the principles. Those are things that you can easily test. I've already explained how you can test them, right? On your list method, right? So the list method itself, for those of you who are not aware, and I'm going to give you the little blurb right now so you can begin to do this immediately, but please watch my videos on it. It's a whole video worth of stuff, right? It's not just a technique of writing. That's not what the list method is, right? I started to call it the list method exercise because people thought it's some other person's stuff, So the key is you write down 10 things each day, right? They are individual, unique things every day, meaning each day is a unique set of 10 things. Those 10 things are random, and they are supposed to put to the test a various, different aspect of manifesting. In other words, not the same facet of manifesting, meaning each of them individually should be attempting to push to the limits what you believe is possible with manifesting. Things that I've done is, I made it rain for 5 minutes. An old friend messages me. I received a free cup of coffee. Somebody dreamed of me. Somebody called me handsome. Someone told me I was important. Someone tripped and almost fell in front of me. I saw a green balloon pop in front of my face. Oh my God. I've done so many. I've done the president says this. I've done this law was passed. This law was changed. Literally, think of all the different aspects. Think of people. Think of yourself. Think of objects. Think of experiences. Think of your pets. Think of the weather. Think of anything that you can possibly think of. Think of aliens. Whatever you want, right? Think of remembering things, mystical experiences. 10 different things each day. You write them down from the perspective of it's already done, right? I received, this happened, or you could write it down in the tense of like, this happens. But within your mind, it's supposed to be not that it will happen, but that it happens always. Like this continuously happens to me. So the key is you write down 10 things a day, at least, random, different, and do that every single day. Now, the key is you do not reflect back onto, you cannot look, you must forget or make the attempt to, and this is easier to do down the line or after a few days or weeks. You deliberately do not reflect back on page 1 until you have hit the 8th day. Once you hit day 8, you can reflect back on day 1 and look at the list and see, did this happen? Did this happen? Did this happen? How did it happen? When did it happen? Who is involved? What was I thinking? What wasn't I thinking? Was I obsessed? Was I not obsessed? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What were all the bridges that I experienced? When you do this, this is a method that I have done for years and years and years. And what I tell you today, those different nuances as to how time works are derived specifically from that. Now, later on, I did create the program that I have now been working on that hopefully I'll have soon with an interface perhaps so that you guys can mess around with it too. But even that program has picked up on the exact and even more nuances of how manifesting works as it relates to time. But it says the exact same thing, right? Tomorrow never manifests. Today doesn't manifest today necessarily. It'll manifest any time as if you didn't even include that word. The fastest way to manifest is to leave out the specific time frame. If you manifest or try to manifest within a time frame and that time will not be able to create the bridge of incidents to get you there, then it will fail and it'll never happen. If you go into the future, it will happen and it'll get pushed down to that time frame as long as it can happen in between. If you manifest two things, meaning if you imagine two separate variations of it, one with a deadline, one without a deadline, if this one that has a deadline cannot be fulfilled, it'll drop off, but this one will still remain as a seed. So as long as, even if you have set deadlines in the past, you aren't screwed. Just start imagining without them. That's the fastest way to do this. And then watch my video on micro assumptions if you want to know more about how assumptions affect the bridge of incidents, or watch one of my videos on everyone is yourself pushed out. My videos, they are going to be much different. The vernacular that I use is very specific to my testing and experimentation, which is going to be different than the conflicting different pieces of vocabulary that coaches are conflicting with each other, right? So pay attention closely to my vocabulary, my vernacular. It's going to be a little bit different than the rest of the stuff that you've heard before. And again, keep in mind, this stuff is not projections of what might be true. This is all just observations that I have seen. I did not create any of this. This has been observed. Literally hundreds of thousands of manifestations. For 13 years straight, I have been testing and documenting my manifestations. Ever since an individual told me to keep track of them because it'll help me on a rainy day. And I took that to heart. At first, it was just prayers, but then I started, once I began to go down the law of attraction trap and realizing, because I was in a very detrimental situation that I ended up crawling myself out of with manifesting, but none of that stuff was working properly. And if it did, it was hit or miss. The only way that I got out of it, because I've read every book in the book. They give you a lot of information, but there's too much conflicting information. There's nothing that's direct. Most of it is tradition-based. I mean, I'll tell you something. This is just a personal anecdote. It's true. I have an individual, he's a friend of mine, and he was taught in a sacred spiritual practice, which I'm just going to tell you, he literally has the ability to manifest chi out of his hands, like fire, like that dude Jack Chang, right? I've seen it, I've witnessed it firsthand. And he's more like me. He's a data-driven, a systematic person. He's an analytical mind, right? He is an architect or an engineer. He's an engineer. So with that mindset, what he did was he traveled all around China to try to surmise how people do this. You know, over time, he did find someone who taught him, and he studied a bunch of people. He got very lucky, very fortunate that he was able to get in with a crowd and translate. So he talked to all these different practitioners. And what he said to me when he was explaining to me how he does it was, they don't even know. They don't question what they're taught. They're not allowed to question what they're taught. They pass on the tradition because it's sacred. You don't question your guru. You don't question who taught you. You take it and you move on and you just do what they say. This is, if you don't know, this is the way that knowledge was passed down. And this was a way that kept it sacred and exact, but for thousands of years. And the reason I bring that up is because, yes, a lot of the information that we have today is extremely true, but not really exact and not really with knowing. In fact, the originator of these practices, which could be thousands of years ago, might in their mind have an exacting formula that they use in order to construct that practice. But they just give the practice out and then that's passed down generation to generation, losing the meaning, losing the origin. So what this individual did, the man who I know, the one who taught me, he just found the common denominators, exactly like I do, right? Finding what works because you've witnessed it work. Finding what you've seen work in others. And that is what you teach. And that is what I teach, right? I went down the path. Unfortunately, I fell into believing what I was taught. I was sucked into a cult, multiple cults, to be honest with you. I was just really perfect as a victim. But it was that experience plus a couple others that really drove me to test. I mean, as a person who was in deep trouble in life, I mean, I was on death's door, literally. It was not a matter of a specific person or getting rich. It was literally, I had been dead, I was resuscitated, I was dying. There was things that were happening in my life that I was entirely powerless to based upon what I was taught in the past, based on anything religious, based on anything from science, based on anything medicine. Nothing could help me, nothing. Testing was the key. So anything that I have read, in which many of it has been extremely helpful, much of it has been extremely helpful, but it's all been filtered through experience now and systematically tested into those books, written down, extracted, put into my machine now, and I'm working on a way to have that as an interface that can be interacted with so that it can be used regularly to help anyone manifest anything. I mean, there are predictable ways to look at anything that you've imagined and predict what is going to manifest as a result of it. There are ways that this deep learning has explained to me that you can look at your reality and know exactly how it was created. You can look at any sign and know exactly what imaginal act you've done and if that imaginal act is going to manifest the outcome that you're looking for. There are specific methods, verifiable methods, and testing is the way to do this. Now listen, before this deep learning stuff, this is new, right? The last 2 years I've been obsessing over it, but for the 11 years before that, these conclusions that I'm telling you now, the majority of them have been made just merely through analytics. When you begin to test with the list method, you will find the common denominator so fast that it will help you master manifesting in a fraction of the time as any of these people that you see, any of these famous mainstream people, right? Listen, God's honest truth, I think that people who test for 6 months have a greater, I've talked to some people who have tested for 6 months from zero experience. I can't say zero experience because most people who find me have already gone through the get rich quick stuff, right? But those people who have started testing generally have more experiential, verifiable knowledge and information than the mainstream people out there making billions off the backs of the people who believe that they're channeling an alien or channeling something. So this you can all prove, right? This is provable, experiential. That is what I teach. That is what I am going to help you with on my channel, right? Don't take anything I say to the bank. Nothing. I want you to test it. I need you to test it. And when you test it, I want you to help somebody else. But you need to test it. So start the list method today and keep in mind the aspects as it relates to time. So in the next series of videos, I'm going to be breaking down more nuanced, extracted concepts as to how reality works as it relates to manifesting. There are so many different avenues and angles that need to be broken down specifically that are so out of control from what I hear. The people in the comments make me laugh hysterically. You guys are hilarious, right? In all my videos and stuff, talking about, I've heard this from this video and this thing. How does this work? I mean, some of this stuff, I'm like, wow, man, just ask that teacher what they're doing, how they know this for a fact, what they have done to test this. Have they tried other variations of it? Follow those who test. Follow those who push testing, not those who say this is the way. So anyway, listen, I'm going to stop rambling now. I really appreciate that you're here. Definitely, I didn't even tell you, there is a worksheet along with this for the list method. I want you to download that. If you download that, it's going to give you a little bit more information. And also, I'm going to give you a full, updated, intricate, deep list method exercise video coming soon. I got an excellent video coming soon. I don't even want to tell you yet. A cool method and technique that's really awesome. But the point is listen, we're really going to be going deep into the testing. This is what's going to amp you up to trust manifesting. This isn't something you have to believe in. This isn't something you have to feel. This isn't something you have to know. This is something you have to test. And testing will get you wherever you want. So anyway, again, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you being here. See you soon.